Welcome to this next edition of the Sassy Ladies podcast. You are joined today by myself. I am your local alien Sophie, and with me today is.
Hi, this is Ariel, and I am the nice one.
At least that's what she tells herself to go to sleep at night.
Oh, whatever.
So, today's topic is going to be a more serious one. Today we are talking about the recurring trend throughout all of history of men downplaying, ignoring, disregarding, and shutting up women when they talk about women's issues. Big topic here. So, to give an example of this sort of phenomenon, any ladies watching, I'm sure you've experienced times when you're just trying to talk to other ladies or you're listening to another woman talking about women's issues, and out of nowhere, someone just comes in blazing and has no frame of reference for what you're even talking about, but feels the need to make it clear that you're wrong or you shouldn't be talking about it, or to try to direct it towards some men's issue that already gets talked about, and you're just like, dude, we I wasn't even talking to you. Where did you come from? What's your experience with this, Ariel?
I mean, yes. It's really kind of mind-boggling. Especially like you would think, at least I would think in today's day and age it wouldn't be an issue, or not necessarily an issue, or that it wouldn't be as bad as it still is. um but something that it really just kind of reminds me of, and it's something that I actually experienced myself, um like to my face basically, was a back in like in the 2006. It was when the Me Too movement started, and then it came back, like it came back to be really prominent in like 20 um in 20 like 17, 2018, when Brett Kavanaugh was running, or was being, in consideration for the Supreme Court. And the Me Too movement was immediately met with the not all men movement, which in and of itself completely shuts down that conversation. So if you're saying, "Oh yeah, I have been sexually assaulted," and a man comes in and says, "Oh, well, not all men do that," and it's like, that's okay. So I'm not allowed to talk about it. Like it's like immediately saying, "Okay, but not all men do it, so let's not talk about it." It's like what?
And that is something that, if we were to direct that towards other demographic issues, like let's say, for instance, Black Lives Matter, immediately followed by All Lives Matter, oh,
Yep.
then people can talk about that. Then people can point out that All Lives Matter is downgrading the statement of Black Lives Matter. But when it's women, oh, women just need to sit in the corner, be quiet, and let the men handle this.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting because I was kind of looking at some information just in general about like men and women in conversation, and men and women, and just like how that, looking at studies that show some of this kind of on a factual basis. And in the Supreme Court, 15 years of oral argument transcripts, female justices were interrupted 32% of the time, while men were only interrupted 4% of the time. That I'm sorry, 32% to 4% is a gigantic difference, in my opinion.
And I bet you it wasn't the women who were mostly
We're
interrupting the
interrupting.
females.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I don't like, well, there's that Barbie quote about patriarchy, um where can have you seen Barbie the movie?
I have not, but feel free to say what you're gonna say, because I probably won't.
So Ken and Barbie have to go to, um have to go to the real world so that stereotypical Barbie can find her human, whoever's playing with her, and fix her because she's like starting to feel she's not perfect anymore. And so Ken in Barbie world is not relevant. Ken doesn't matter because it's all about women, right? It's all about the women. Well, when he gets to the real world, he sees that he learns about patriarchy, and he's like, I thought he goes up to this man. He's like, I thought that it was patriarchy, and so I thought that I could do whatever I wanted. And the guy's like, oh no no no, we're still very patriarchal. We just hide it better. And so it was just it's like what I was saying earlier is like I you would think that come this like with this day and age, when you think about when the women's movement started and to now, it's like why are we're still 32 to 4, like we're still that's still what we're at, like we're not any closer.
But no, you're misunderstanding. Men and women are equal because there are female judges.
Yeah, see, I mean that's exactly that.
Just like how there's no racism in America because we had a black
uh
president.
yep.
But if you say that, people are going to point out all the things wrong with that statement. But when it comes to women, who make up half the world's population, nope, nope, women can't complain about anything because, oh, they're in the workforce now and they're able to take care of their kids on their own now, so what are they complaining about?
It's just it's like the recent trend of people asking women if they, between do the
Yeah.
bear or the man, and it's like, well, yeah, obviously the bear. But then God forbid, a man comes in, well, a bear, well, what can a bear do for you? Well, what's a bear gonna do if you guys if you're starving out in the wilderness? What's a bear gonna do if you're cold and freezing? What's a bear gonna do? I was like, I'm more concerned about what the bear's not gonna do.
I've seen some different follow-ups to that where there's at least a couple content creators who have started referring to men as the non-bears.
Okay.
And I've also seen like men's clap back to it or whatever, where it's this little cartoon that was drawn and it shows a man hugging a bear and the bear is saying, "Oh, it was awful being left alone with her. Why are women so mean?" And the man's like, "I've got you, buddy. I know."
Oh my god.
Which honestly, like if men really were that compassionate to hug a bear and be like, I know, buddy. I mean, that right there is an attractive trait instead of being like, oh, I could totally take on a bear. Like, yeah, I can fight a bear and a jaguar and this and that. Honestly, if you spent more time hugging bears, I mean, eh,
You'd probably have some women that would pick you over the bear if you were to do that, sir. Um it's interesting because this whole issue is not just like political, but it's also like it's to the point where it's becoming detrimental for women. Um just like I don't know about you, but whenever I go to the doctor, I feel like I have to go in and tell them, "Hey, this is what I think is wrong with me." Because if not, more often than not, they're going to say, "Oh, it's probably just hormonal." "Oh, it's are you about to start your period?" "Oh, that's normal, well, yeah, that's normal." "Well, I mean, oh, that's normal." It's like, okay, but apparently it's not. It's not though, because I know my normal body. What I'm feeling is not normal.
even when you're just doing like a checkup, um, they somehow find five different ways to ask if you could possibly be pregnant. It's like, dude, the first time, did you not understand? Why do you have another set of questions just asking the same thing pretty much? No, I'm not pregnant. No, I don't have an STD. Also, like, I'm here for something completely unrelated. Can we just skip to that?
Well, it's like I think we were talking about this earlier. It's like I haven't had sex in 4 years. It
Okay.
is outside the realm of possibility for me to be pregnant. So if I tell you, no, I'm not pregnant, I assure you it's true. It's not possible. Why do you still need me to pee in the cup? Like if you can tell me, like, and I know that they run other tests for like other urine tests for drugs and stuff, but you don't need to come back and tell me, okay, well you're not pregnant. I was like, yes, I told you that. Tell me what else my pee says.
Well, you know why they do this? Why they don't believe you? It's because there's still a huge stigma around women being pregnant to the point that a lot of women do still hide if they've been sexually active. And
This is
so
ridiculous.
they're creating their own problems.
Ugh. Ugh. I have a statistic for you. 1 in 5 women say that they have felt that a healthcare provider has ignored or dismissed their symptoms. And 17% say they feel they have been treated differently because of their gender, compared with 14% and 6% of men, respectively.
And bear in mind that's for the particular study. Most likely the numbers would be higher if you polled every woman and asked
Mm-hmm.
them what that looks like.
Yeah, I agree. This was a study done by Duke Health.
And even just among doctors in that position as well, first of all, just being a female doctor, an actual doctor, not a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you don't see a ton of those. And when you do, it's just such a different experience when you have a woman asking you about womanly things rather than a male doctor that is it's treating it more clinical, more like a just checking things off a list, and then once that list is complete, he doesn't need to think about it anymore. Whereas the female doctor is more likely to be like, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying here. I I have an understanding of what isn't normal or is normal. Of course, there's also a problem with female doctors having been trained to just downplay certain things, but they're more likely to not act as if everything's just a clinical checkbox of things.
Mm.
And outside of the health field, tell me why in the year 2024 there's still men afraid to even hear the word, period. They act like it's gonna shoot them if they just even are in earshot of that word.
Why is it that menstruation is still such a taboo? Like why is it still such a risque or like it's such a bad word still?
Unless
Why
they're
is
joking
that?
about it.
Yeah, unless they're using it to, oh, she must be on her period.
Oh, then they have no problem saying the word then.
When it's why we're being difficult, when it explains our why they don't understand our complex emotions.
And somehow these men end up with a wife and children and at the age of 50, 60 years old still act like they don't know women menstruate.
Well, and I think that's something to be said about our healthcare, like not our healthcare system, but our education system, when it comes to anatomy, or at the very least female anatomy. It's like how many stories have you heard about men that don't even know where babies come from, like what an actual menstruational cycle looks like and what it is, um what where it's coming out of, like what the woman's body actually, how it functions and how it works. Like how many women have to teach their boyfriends what's going on with them?
Well, they can't
Why
even
isn't
teach their boyfriends though, because their boyfriends are so disgusted by it, and you deal with that. That's a woman thing. Oh, I don't need to know about that.
Well, and that it's like what, like why is that? Like as a mother, so I am a mother of three boys, and I cannot imagine, you know, cursing or doing my future daughter-in-laws, potential daughter-in-laws. I don't know what they might be, but like in any potential daughter-in-laws of without preparing my son for that, or my future potential granddaughters. Why would I damn them essentially by not preparing my sons for that? And just it's such a disservice. Why do we do this to ourselves? Let alone, men are already doing it to us. Why are we doing it to each other?
Because it's been ingrained culturally, and it's hard to go against the grain.
Yeah, that's ugh.
Especially in cultures where it's dangerous to do so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't even. I mean, I there is that is I think one aspect where I really do feel fortunate to have been born American. Um, because there are definitely, especially like in the Middle East and in Africa, there are definitely cultures where the things that are done even to the female body is just horrific.
Oh yeah, genital mutilation is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the wife stitch, which is still sometimes done in secret, even though it's illegal.
Even though it's illegal and absolutely non-effective, like it doesn't do what they quote unquote say it does. So it's so it makes you sick.
And so, as a mother of three boys, one of which is a teenager, how are
Yes.
you handling this sort of thing with him?
Well, excuse me. I have been a single mother most of his life. Um and it's, I don't know that I wouldn't say I'm like sitting down and teaching him things. It's just that like his whole life I've just always been honest and open. So like when I got pregnant with his brother, he was like, "Oh, the baby's going to come out of your butt." I was like, no, that's not what's going to happen." You teach them as you go, right? We didn't sit and have like a whole, 2-week period of his life where I was teaching him all about this. But when he asks natural questions as they occur as he's growing up and learning about himself, and about the people around him, I answer that question honestly with honest information. Like, oh well, where do babies come from? It's like, okay, well, age appropriate information, right? When he was 5, he got quite a few less details than he did as he asked about it again when he was, 12. So it's about being honest. And I think that, like, to your point, I don't know that the system is really just messed with our heads so badly that a lot of women aren't comfortable with themselves talking about it,
Oh
let
yeah,
alone teaching.
sanitary napkins.
Ugh, yeah, I hate those things. The only time I've ever really willingly worn a pad is when either it was the only thing that was available, or after I give kids and then they send you home with like these mattresses that you absolutely have to have because you can't stick anything up there.
See, I've always had pads because I was never taught how to use anything else. And when you're in the workplace, especially if you're a regular, you don't have time to
Mm-hmm.
experiment with anything else.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah, and go ahead. I'm so sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm not about to be over here on an 8 hour shift on my feet, get one break 6 hours in, and then find out I've been bleeding for the past five.
And so I've been using so you use them for, are you talking about like panty liners?
No, like for because like if you've been using pads your whole life, you know what the limit is, you know like when you need to change it, etc. But if you're like have to be at work, you don't want to experiment with that if you know you're not going to be able to take a break for several hours.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I thought that you were implying something different when it came to tampons. I was like, when you got a tampon on, you absolutely know when you need to change it. um, but no, yeah, definitely it doesn't leave much wiggle room for trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So so I can understand, and I know people are that, I mean, and tampons aren't healthy. Tampons aren't healthy for your body.
Oh yeah, they can
Um
prolong your period by up to 1 to 2 days.
Well, and you risk it. It's not healthy for you to hold that blood up in your body, because your body, you run the risk of your body trying to reabsorb it, and then you can get toxic shock. It's just, it's not healthy. Like it's unfortunate. And at this point in time in our conversation, had there been a man, he would have been like, oh well, why don't we, that we can't talk about that.
Yeah, it would be like, gross.
It's not that big of a deal, you guys.
But
You guys are just making it up.
have you heard
You
of
guys can just hold it.
yeah, that yeah. Have you heard of the I can't remember what company it was, but they found like some toxic material in the pad, I mean in the tampons. Um and so women across the internet were like, "Dang, we can't even wear tampons anymore without getting poisoned." It was like I can't remember what chemical it was, but it was like arsenic or lead or something like that.
Oh, just just your run of the mill poisoning. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It's cool. It's chill. You guys.
When you
You
start
guys, it's
bleeding, you'll just
fine.
wonder, is that my period or is it cancer?
Yeah, that part. Um,
Ooh, speaking of cancer, do you know what the number one cause of cervical cancer is?
I do not.
It is HPV. Um, and guess
Oh,
what
I
the
did know
number
that.
one way to get that is?
I feel like you're gonna make me feel really stupid. Go
HPV,
ahead. Sex?
yes,
I was gonna say sex. It's human papillomavirus. Yes, I know.
yes.
I know what HPV is. Um, and I actually I had it in when I found out I was pregnant with Maddox. But did you know? Here's a little time for me to show off a little bit. Did you know, out of the, I believe it's 18 strains of HPV, only two are cancer causing?
I didn't know there was 18 strains. But yeah, I mean, I knew that it wasn't all of them.
Mm-hmm. So my male doctor, and he was very lovely. But my male OBGYN was like, "Oh, we'll just test again when, when you give birth. We'll just see, cuz normally your body just clears it right up." I was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." Thanks.
Well, so sex with men usually in particular because they got to get it up there uh is like responsible for like over 90% of cervical cancer cases. um and yet these same men will try to tell you that you can't take birth control because it'll increase your risk of cancer, but then at the same time they want to have unprotected sex, which very much increases your risk of cancer.
Wow.
Because if you look at the risk for birth control, especially now in the present day, not like 30 years ago, um, it in depending on what type you're taking, it can increase your risk of breast cancer or ovarian cancer or cervical cancer. But when you look at how much it increases, it's not by much. You're probably putting yourself at greater risk of just like living in a city and breathing in like pollution.
Wow. So I have to put my foot in my mouth a little bit. You know me, I'm constantly looking up information while we're chatting. And I have to put my foot in my mouth a little bit. There are actually more than 100 types of HPV.
Okay, that sounds
Um,
more right.
and some estimate there are over 200. So where my information was wrong is it's the number of high risk ones. There are 12 high risk ones, but type 16 and 18 are usually are the most responsible. So it is the two, type 16 and type 18, that are most responsible for HPV related cancers.
Mm.
So it was of those 12 strains, it's those two that are most responsible.
While we're on the topic of STDs, you know what I love hearing when people are, just talking about HIV and AIDS? I love hearing men talk about how women are the biggest spreaders of it, completely ignoring where the women got it from.
I mean, I mean, are they though? Like, is that like a statistical fact? Like, are women do women spread it more?
Yeah,
Interesting.
partly, you have like sex workers, but I mean,
Okay.
okay, so number one thing is if you have a man who's cheating and he
Yeah.
sleeps with a woman who has it and then goes home to his wife, he just transferred it to her. And then let's say he cheats on someone else, then he's transferring it to the other person. So it's like this one person can end up just giving it to multiple women.
Mhm.
And then let's say they break up and so the woman ends up with someone else and then she spreads it to her new partner. But she didn't have it originally. It came from somewhere else.
Yeah. It's well, and you also have to consider, other types of there are other ways. It's a bloodborne
Yeah, you can pass it to your children too.
well, you can pass it to your children if you are a needle user. Um, it's there are other activities that can transmit it as well. But I just it what was there was a statistic I was reading earlier about men, and it was saying something about it said 30% of men believe that gender equality in the workplace is responsible for their has had an adverse effect on them.
Because it's all about them. And don't worry, y'all. We are definitely going to have a conversation about the epidemic that's happening across the Western world of young, able bodied men opting out of the workplace. And in particular, we're going to be talking about how they're blaming women being in the workplace for that. That is a conversation for the future, so let us know if that's something you're interested in hearing, because we definitely have some thoughts on that. Yeah, it's just they it's like they go 2 decades of being told, okay, you have to see women or at least pretend you see women as equals, and they just lose their collective mind.
Which and it's I think I think a lot of it has to do with them believing that like women can't be equal physically. Um and to an extent there is, naturally, I believe that in naturally occurring genetics, men tend to be have their muscle mass is higher than than women's. But that's not to say that women can't be stronger, because there are many women, many women that prove that on a regular basis, right? But I don't I it's maddening to me that the minute you the minute you see that X chromosome, instead of the Y chromosome, the we are immediately delegated or demoted to less than human status, as far as our rights, as far as our capabilities, as far as what we should be and shouldn't be allowed to do. It's just like I don't. And as a woman, I can't give an answer as to why that is, because I don't think like a man.
I can definitely propose an answer for why, but what I want to bring up, since you talked about rights and less than human, so we are both black ladies, and
Hmm.
it's mind blowing that black men, specifically black men, were given the right to vote so long before women were, which means even for white men, they were more willing to trust the race they hated in a position of politics over their wives and their daughters and their sisters.
Yeah. They were more willing to trust the male object's opinion than the female than the white female's opinion.
You know another term that's going around lately? Um, the wife appliance, referring to,
Oh my god.
yes, referring to how a lot of times when women get married, they're delegated to just what they can do for the man. They become an appliance in the house.
Oh god, that is horrible. I hate that. I hate everything about that.
No, no, it's used by women to like,
To explain the way
yeah,
they feel.
to point out this is not a loving husband wife thing. She is an appliance to him. She's just being used.
Yeah. Ugh.
At which point, someone's gonna say, "Oh, well, men and women have different roles." Of course, it's the woman's role to clean and cook and take care of the kids and make sure everything is provided for within the home. And then it's the male's role to go out and earn and be respected and be able to provide for himself if he ever wants to leave the wife and kids on their own. So
Mm.
it's just natural.
Which is wild because one, I don't know that that's natural so much as it's been ingrained in our cultural culture, because there are many ancient cultures where the women went out and did the hunting, and did the gathering, and did all of that kind of stuff. There are quite a few ancient societies where that were matriarchal as opposed to patriarchal. And it's just ugh. Now please don't misunderstand. I know women that is what they like to do. That they live to be that is what they live for. They live to be the nurturer. They live to be at home, taking care of the house, taking care of their children. That is what they that's what feeds them, and that's what brings them joy. And I say, if that is what brings you joy, absolutely go for it. Do it. What I don't like is it being expected of all women. I don't like being told that that is what I'm supposed to do.
And what we're seeing lately is a lot of people reminiscing about the good old days in the 50s when women were just in the home and you would get off work and you would ignore your kids and dinner would be placed in front of you and nobody ate until you did, and then you would just watch TV, scratch your balls, and then go to sleep, and then on the weekends you would just drink with your friends and completely ignore your family until you had to go back home. And you would always joke about how much you hated it and how much you wish your wife wasn't there. The good old days. And they try hard to convince women, oh, you would be so much happier if you just went back to this. Why would you want to work? Because those weren't the good old days when women were getting abused by their husbands and having to raise the kids practically on their own and couldn't go out and have their own job and provide for themselves. May have been the good old days for you, but I'm not trying to go back to that, especially any woman of color. Nah, forget about it.
Yeah, the good old rule of thumb.
Yep. Uh, and just all the people who are reminiscing about how good the 50s were. It's gross because it's just saying I want to go back to when everyone was oppressed except this particular demographic of people.
Mm, yeah.
I
Ugh.
want to go back before laws that protected certain demographics. I want to go back to when, oh, you're poor? Well, you're either going to work on the railroad or work in the mine. Either way, you're not going to make it to 50.
Well, and you also have to consider, like even today there are some nations where marital rape isn't a thing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. It was recently, in the past couple years, that India made it official that marital rape is not a thing, that if a man wants something from his wife,
His wife.
she cannot take any kind of legal action against it. That was
Which is just,
recent.
it's just makes you, like, it literally makes me physically, like, my stomach is boiling at the thought of that, at the whole concept of the minute you sign that contract, you are an appliance, right? You are meant to be, it is what you do for your husband, it is what you are used, how can you be of use? Ugh.
And some men would hear this and rush to say, no, 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 you can't criticize their culture. You're putting down their culture. You're trying to say that they're lesser than. And this just goes right back to the topic of whenever women are talking about women's issues, there's always a man rushing to shut that down. And they'll use all types of things to make it seem like they're in the right and they're being just. But at the end of the day, it is a man who does not want to hear about what women are going through and would rather pretend it doesn't exist than just say, yeah, that is a problem we need to work on. Because a lot of times it's the men who have the power to change these things, but because they would rather ignore it, these things persist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I actually read something about what the Not All Men movement does. Like why it was such um a a why it's not an okay thing, like an okay argument to add to something like the Me Too movement. It says it is a sorry, excuse me. It says it is a way of stating that, and deflecting attention away from men being in discussions of sexual assault, the gender pay gap, and other female issues. So it is their way of being like, oh, I'm not like that, so now I don't want to talk about it.
Because they take it personally, and it's like If it's not relevant to you, then it's not relevant to you. No one said you, Jacob, Marty, McFly the third, you specifically are this and that and the other. For some reason, if you just say the word men, boys, males, not women, they take it personally unless it's something hyping them up like, oh, men are the protectors, men built society, men did this and that. Oh, they're quick to claim that. Anything else though, not all men do this. Okay, so you're trying to act like all men are willing to die for us. All men are gonna fight in wars, which by the way, who started the war? You're gonna act like all men are gonna build a house, which I don't know anybody in my personal life who's a male who is going to build a house on their own. Um, so you want to take credit for that, but then you want to say not all men when it's something that makes you look bad.
Hmm. It conversely, the part of the crux of the matter is that while is more with the response that kind of started becoming, that was started going out about to the not all men comment, is like is the yes all men. It says that not all men are a part of the problem, but that yes, all men are part of the solution. That in order to fix it, you have to be willing to have the conversation, and that therein lies the problem, is that you get a lot of men unwilling to have the conversation and then shutting it down completely.
Hmm. Unless it's something that happened to a female relative of theirs, then it's personal. No, they don't care about this and that and everything else when it's someone else. But oh, when it affects their daughter, their wife, oh, then all of a sudden they care about this issue.
Hmm.
And it's not uncommon that you'll see politicians and other people saying, oh, I have a daughter, so, just the thought of her walking around and being assaulted, why did you need to have a daughter in order for you to see that this is wrong?
Well, and what's sad to me is that there are men that do have daughters that go out and they act like that.
Yeah, to other people's daughters, because, oh, it doesn't matter if it's
Mhm.
someone else's daughter.
Exactly. It's like it's like, what do you how do you how can you justify yourself? Like, if someone, how would you feel if it was your daughter?
And you know what's telling? So we were talking about the man or the bear thing earlier, which for anyone listening who hasn't heard, it's basically a question where um, women have been asked, would you rather be in the woods with a random man or a bear? And a lot of women are saying, I'll take the bear. And men were very butthurt about that. But some women who know that their spouses have not heard about it yet, they ask their male spouses, would you rather be in the woods with a bear or a random man? They say the bear.
They got tricky with that. I like that. That's,
Hmm.
well, I mean, it's like, well, they're like, tell me why, like, you know what I mean? Like, why would you rather be as a man? Why would you rather be? That's such a good way to ask, like, to twist it up.
And some twisted it a bit more. Hey, honey, would you rather I or our daughter were in the woods with a bear or a man? They
Hmm.
pick the bear.
But it's not okay for a woman to say, hands down, bear, every time.
Nope, because that plays to their insecurity. They realize, oh wait, women don't want to sleep with us. Oh no, where am I gonna get my rocks off? I have to convince women that they're wrong and make them feel bad about themselves so that they'll sleep with me. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be around other men. Oh heck no.
Well, and it's like what we were when we were discussing it. It's like the men. A lot of the men that I've seen responding so aggressively to these debates, so quote unquote, are like, well, who's gonna, who's gonna make you build you a fire, or who's gonna get you food, and who's gonna do all of this stuff for you. And it's like, dude, I'm not worried about what the bear is gonna do for me. I am more concerned about what the bear's not gonna do. You know what the bear's not gonna do? The bear's not gonna even come near me. The bear doesn't want anything to do with me. The bear's not gonna come and talk to me. The bear's not gonna ask me why I'm not smiling. The bear's not gonna want anything to do with me. That's why I want the bear.
Especially if it's a black bear. They're timid and easy to scare anyway. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
if
and
you
if it's a grizzly, just stay the fuck away from the bear. Like, oh, is this your den over here? I'm gonna come and stay on this side of the forest.
yeah,
You do you over there. I'll do me over here. We're golden.
and even if the bear does kill you, at least its goal is to kill you. It's not
Yeah.
going to torture you first, hold you in a dungeon, do this and that and whatever. It's just going to kill you and eat you and feed its children.
And if that bear did do that to you, it is more likely that that bear is going to be put down.
Oh, yep, yep. If a dog just looks aggressive, gets put down. I was
Yeah.
watching something right before we were recording. It was about this ped who just awful stuff, but for 15 years, they were in a position where they were working with children and doing stuff with the children. Then they went out of their way to further their connection with children by like being a part of the church and then reaching out to people, being like, "Hey, I'm gonna tutor your kids. Teach them English," because this was in Malaysia, and the dude was from like Australia, and so he got more and more access to the kids. And he even started contributing and built a website on the dark web to share the content and encourage other people to, and created a whole big chain
Oh,
where there were tens of thousands involved with this website.
oh, that's so sad.
And when they finally caught him and they saw all the evidence and all this and that, they didn't even fully encrypt it. They didn't need to. There was so much already there that they found. Um, you know what his sentence was?
I don't want to know.
Okay, but it was
Time served.
yeah, yeah, it was over 15 years. He had well over 100 victims, and it's nowhere near what the punishment should have been.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if a dog had just barked and a child had gotten scared, that dog would have been put down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and yet, what's the bear gonna do for you? What's the bear? What can the bear do for you?
I mean, I'm sure it can fish and hunt better than you.
It can show me where all the good, yummy berries are. Obviously.
And worst case scenario, if you're carrying just one good shot in between the eyes, and you've at least got a good amount of food for the next little while that you're stranded in the woods. We got
Well, and
some
even
clothing.
yeah, yeah, and even like to that point, it's like I don't blame the bear if it's getting aggressive. I am in its territory. like, like,
But don't you know the
I
world
just.
belongs to men? We're just living in it.
Oh God.
Because they birth themselves somehow. But if you want to hear more of our spicy takes on the world that we live in, this very equal world where there's no sexism, no racism, everything's just fine because there's been a couple people of color and a couple women in positions of power. So that means the world is equal. If you want to hear more of our thoughts on that, you know what to do. Keep on trucking with the sassy ladies. And if you didn't like this, if you felt offended by some of what we were saying, I suggest you take a look at why that is before you type a comment. And then think about it again. And then if you're still feeling some type of way, all right, cool. Thanks for the view. But by all means, you don't have to stick around if you don't want to. And with that, this concludes the next session of the Sassy Ladies podcast. Tune in next week where we start juggling toenails while singing karaoke of bad songs from the 80s.
Karma, 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 chameleon.
Oh, you dropped a toenail. Wait, where to go? Where to go? All right, and with that, we hope to see you next time if we didn't scare you away this time. If you're a feisty lady who can handle some feisty comments, by all means, drop that subscription. If you're a tough and manly man who can take some criticism and be like, yeah, yeah, I would take the bear too, by all means, leave a like, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.